Coping with gray text. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Unfortunately, we've seen a very interesting and for some people problematic trend in website design. Here's the question. I am desperate and angry over the trend in graying fonts for the specious reasons that it is more readable than black on white. It isn't. Sometimes it's impossible to fill out a form because the font is so unreadable. Rather than take your time reiterating my lament, may I ask whether there is any recourse? If I thought there was any chance of getting a response, I'd ask Bill Gates himself. Well, I can certainly tell you that Bill's not going to respond because he's not involved in any of this anymore, hasn't been for a long time. But I will tell you that you are absolutely not alone. There are definitely scenarios where what looks like black on white is really a dark gray on white. And what a lot of website designers don't seem to understand is that not only are there people that have eyesight issues, but monitors, displays, don't actually display what they think they do when they design the font. For some people, that dark gray on some monitors turns out to be actually a very light gray, lighter than the author or the designer intended. The net result is they may think that things are readable, but they're not. And I have to admit, I've run into this myself. A couple of years ago, when I changed the layout, the design of askleo.com, I was convinced, I thought that I had everything done properly. I had done everything in true black or white. And yet, I had someone point out to me that, hey, this text over here, it's not. It's gray on white. Now, to my eye, when I look at it on the screen, it was dark black. It looked black on white. But when I took a look at the underlying code that created that piece of text, that put the color on that piece of text, sure enough, it was not 100% black. It was a dark gray, and that was enough to cause some people problems. So when you run into this yourself, what can you do? Of course, you can complain to the website designer, and hopefully, like me, they'll say, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. But sometimes, especially for the larger corporations that have a larger mandate, apparently, than making sure absolutely everybody can read what's on their website, there's very little that can be done. So you end up having to take things into your own hands. What I want to show you are a couple of different approaches that can potentially make things more readable. Sometimes at the cost of being more ugly, but sometimes that's what you need to do. So let's switch over here. I've got Windows 11 up and running. We'll go ahead and fire up my website, askleo.com. And the interesting thing to look at now is this website, because I've designed it to be proper, is black on white. But let's assume for a moment that it wasn't. Let's assume there was a problem. Let's assume that some of the text on this screen, you could tell that it was there, but you couldn't quite read it. A very, very quick thing to do, type Control A. What that does is it essentially tells the web browser to select all in preparation for a copy paste. But as a side effect of selecting all, it shows you what's been selected. And depending on the browser and the colors and other things involved, that often just causes this highlighting effect, which instead of being black on white is now white on, in my case, blue. That might be more readable. It's a single keystroke that can sometimes make things much more readable very quickly. As an alternative, you don't have to select everything. For example, if we go back to what this was, and all I did, by the way, was click on the screen to make the highlighting go away. If all I really was concerned about was a specific paragraph, I could just select that paragraph. And now, once again, that paragraph is in this reverse selected mode, so you can see it's white on, in my case, blue. Try that. That's something that can be helpful. High contrast mode is another alternative. Unfortunately, high contrast mode can be really, really ugly, but it can make things more readable. Search for contrast. Now, in my case, this is Windows 11. You'll see I've got contrast themes is the search result we're going to click on. In Windows 10, you also have the option to click on something called turn high contrast on or off, which will do essentially the same thing. So I'm going to click on contrast themes here, and you can see we've got a number of themes we can choose from. I am going to select this one, aquatic, I guess it is. And down here where it says contrast themes, we'll select aquatic and hit apply. Now all of a sudden everything has become very, very high contrast. I'll just minimize the settings dialog for a moment. And once again, now you can see, instead of being black on white, high contrast has turned this into white on black. This can be more readable. It's ugly as sin. I totally get that. But if you're trying to read something on the screen, that ugliness may be a price worth paying if you're having difficulty. Now you'll notice in settings, it also in here talked about a keystroke, a Alt left shift print screen to turn contrast theme on and off. Alt left shift and print screen, and it turns it off. Now in this particular case, since I'm using a virtual machine, my main machine outside of this is also complaining. You may have heard a sound. The bottom line here is that with that selected, you can turn on and turn off high contrast mode with a keystroke. Now I'm going to go back to none so that we're back in the default case. And I'm going to switch over to Chrome real quick as the browser. The reason I'm doing that is because there is an extension for Chrome that might also be useful. I've got a shortcut to it here, go.askleo.com/Chrome high contrast. You'll find that in the article that accompanies this video. But if I hit enter on that, it takes me to the web store, for the Chrome web store, and I now have the option to add this high contrast extension to Chrome. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Not going to worry about sync right now. And I'm also then going to click on this little puzzle piece so that I can pin the high contrast icon to the toolbar so that I can actually turn this on and off. I'll go ahead and close this, and now you can see with the high contrast, it has been enabled by default. I can disable it, I can re-enable it. It's great. Now the only thing to realize about this extension is that it is only in the browser. So on the left-hand side here, I have Edge, and on the right-hand side, I have Chrome, and it's only Chrome that has this extension enabled. So if I turn on high contrast, only web pages and only web pages that are displayed in Chrome are going to be displayed in this high contrast mode. But once again, it's a nice, quick way to essentially make things really ugly for the purpose of readability in a web page. This case, by using an extension, you're not forcing that ugliness on the entire system if you don't need it. Go ahead and disable that again. Another extension that I've had recommended to me several times, and I'm going to show you the Edge version of this, is something called Dark Reader. And here it is, go.askleo.com/Dark Reader for the extension in the Edge add-on store. I'm going to go ahead and get it, add the extension. You can see it gives you its little help page with the information about it. Once again, I'm going to click on this little puzzle piece. I'm going to click on Show in Toolbar so that I can see the settings when I need them. So now with the extension enabled and visible, if I now go to my own site, I can now turn Dark Reader on or off on a page-by-page basis if I want to. The nice thing about Dark Reader is that it has a number of other configuration options. You can change brightness and contrast, dark and light. You can do things specifically for site. There's a number of different things you can configure with this. Again, I've gotten lots of positive feedback on using Dark Reader in the comments to the original article that accompanies this video. So those are some of the quick and dirty options that you have available to you if you're struggling with gray on white text, if you're struggling with websites or even applications that are a little bit too hard to read because of the font color choices that are being made. I strongly suggest that you do provide your feedback when you can, but understand that website owners, application owners may not have the resources, and in some cases, unfortunately, the interest, to actually fix these kinds of problems. On the other hand, some do. Like I said, I tried to, and I did when I was notified that there was a problem. But if nothing happens, you have a few tools now that are in your control that you can bring to bear on the problem, and hopefully make the web a little bit more readable. Hope that helps. For comments, for updates, for related links and more, visit askleo.com/72427. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.